First of all, thank you very much. This is my first time in Greece, and I've been so busy I didn't even learn how to say good morning in Greek. So I apologize for that. By the end of the day, I need three phrases: good morning, thank you, and where are the toilets? Always the first three phrases I learn in any language. So we need to remedy that. Checking on the microphone. Also, I'd like to thank Agile Actors because they are sponsoring this talk. So they have a booth here. So thank you for that. I'll show this slide at the beginning and the end. So thank you to Agile Actors for supporting this. I don't need the water, that's fine. Thank you so much. No, it's okay, it's good. Now I'm going to share the stage with my partner in crime on the Heart of Agile, Sole Pinter. If you just stand up for a split second, she'll be getting up in about 15, 20 minutes when we get to the section on solution focus, future focus, reflect and improvement. Which she does better than I do, so I'm happy to have you get the better of the two for that module. The heart of Agile is only 4 words: collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. So this is a little bit the story of why there's only 4 words. It's not a framework, it's just 4 words, right? And in principle, you know how to do that. You know how to collaborate. I don't have to teach you that. If you're in whatever your technical domain is, you know how to deliver. There's some technical stuff, you can update your skills. Most people don't stop and reflect. So in Scrum, we say inspect and adapt, and in my stuff, Crystal, we say reflective improvement. But both of those have 2 concepts: reflecting and improving, inspecting and adapting. So I split those. They go together very much, but I split them because I want people to stop and reflect. And then you can improve. So you collaborate to deliver, you reflect to improve. You collaborate, you reflect on the collaboration, and you improve the collaboration. You deliver, you reflect on the delivery, and you improve the delivery, and of course you reflect on the reflecting and improve the reflecting, and you reflect on the improving, and you improve the improving, right? You know, it's all the circles are in there. So it's not just one loop. I want to go back to the beginning. And at the very beginning, we have to ask, what is Agile? Now, up until maybe this year, I would say, read the manifesto. But the manifesto is still product and software oriented, even though we've been trying to get Agile out of software for, that's fine. Okay, good. Thank you. So I'm going to start at the beginning with just the question, what is Agile? And I used to say, you know, Agile manifesto, but it's still, we have habits to use it in software and habits to use it in product development. And what I like to say is it's an accident of history that a group of programmers decoded this thing. But this thing has nothing to do with software per se. So by habit, people think it's got to do with software. So we're trying to take it out of software. And what I'm learning is how to talk about this without referencing anything about products or software. It's a completely how people work in teams to have some effect in the world. That's it, right? So we're using it for social development projects, social impact projects, recycling, medical, right? Anything, any kind of an initiative will benefit from the basic concepts of Agile. So I'm going back to the very beginning. And the beginning is, what is Agile? We just have the dictionary definition, which is the ability to move and change direction quickly and with ease, right? That's what Agile is. And we knew that when we wrote the manifesto. We knew that the meaning of that word, and we chose it, you know, on purpose with that sense. There's a sense of lightness and ease in moving and changing direction. So that's what Agile is. I'll just use that. Now, why? Why do we care about Agile, this thing, agility? And the answer is this word that's quite popular these days. You hear, it's an acronym, VUCA. which sounds, I don't know, like some funny language, but it's the world we live in today. Stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. It's always changing. So there was never a time you could actually sit down and make a perfect plan and then make a perfect design and make a perfect implementation of your design and your plan, because you have mistakes. Very importantly, in the data that I've been reading, people make mistakes in decision making at the rate of 1 in 5. 20% of your decisions have an error in them. Even if we say 1 in 10, it's fine. And I'll harp on this a lot, because if we take the Agile out of software to any decision, marketing, social impact, product, organizational transformation, anything, our final delivery of whatever we're delivering into the world will have like 100,000 decisions in it. And if we're making mistakes even at 1 in 10, that's 10,000 errors. This is a big deal. Now, you could never make a perfect plan to start with, but in a VUCA world, it's even worse, because if you could make a perfect plan, it would be wrong by the time you got there. The world changes underneath you. So we need this agility because we're trying to track the world as it changes, but also what we think the world is also not correct. So we need to probe the world to find out what is the world different than what we think it is, and track the world as the world is changing. So in the heart of Agile, when I say deliver, it's not one big delivery at the end. A synonym for deliver is probe the world. You have to touch the real world. You can't just stare at your documents. You have to touch the real world in some fashion to get feedback from the real world, right? So what is agility? Moving, changing directions quickly and with ease. Why do we care? Our world is VUCA. You have to use this. You have to steer. You have no choice anymore. So everybody has to become agile to some extent. It's a necessary part of the future. So the heart of Agile, what I selected to distill everything down, it's interesting because it's actually more general as well as simpler, is just these 4 words. That the heart of Agile is to collaborate, to deliver, reflect, and improve. Tight cycles over and over and over again. So that's what's the heart of Agile. And it's interesting to ask, so what problem does that solve? What problem that solves is that the Agile frameworks that you see are complicated. Whether you take, LESS, which is relatively simple, Scrum at scale, SAFe, which is very complicated. Doesn't matter which one you take when you try to adopt them. They have a lot of rules, role definitions. They have a lot of stuff in them. It's too complicated and too narrow. Most of them are focused at software or products. So it's too narrow and too difficult, too complicated. That's a problem if everybody has to get there. So we're trying to solve this problem. And the way to solve it is just to have these 4 words, right? So the heart of Agile is, if you will, it's a simpler way to step into this agility stuff, to become more agile, right? Oddly enough, as you'll see, it's simpler to adopt and more powerful at the same time and more widely applicable, because these words don't say anything about your domain. Collaborate, for sure. Now, this is trivially obvious, as we say. As you collaborate better, things go better. As you collaborate worse, things go worse, right? That's not a mystery, except people don't put time and money on it. And what I'm saying is, put time and money on it. You have to deliver these probes to track the world. And you get the benefits of incremental staging, incremental delivery, early revenue, pivot points. You get lots of other good things out of it too, okay? So what we're going to do is to look at this, and we're going to expand it, but I want to be clear, it's not a framework. People say it's a framework. I even have some people who say it's a meta framework. I'm here in Greece using the word meta. I was told that the word meta means after, back when Aristotle, is that the case? Yeah. So it's an after framework. I don't know, is that like the catalytic converter you put on the back of a car to clean up the stuff? But in the US and the English-speaking countries, meta is supposed to mean better. So it's better than a framework because it's a meta framework, right? So it's not, okay? It's 4 words that you know what they mean. It's a reminder. It's a focusing tool. Life is complicated. Just from time to time, and stop and say, how are we doing on this collaboration thing? Can we improve that? How are we doing on our touch the world thing? Can we improve that? Right? So in a very general sense, you see how I'm talking, it can be done with anything. I want to say this about decisions and using this thing, give you a slightly different way of using the word agile, which doesn't have any product, which is the following. You're trying to change the world. Any initiative you undertake is to have an effect in the world, to change the world. So we have this idea, it doesn't matter if we're trying to get people to boil water in Africa, recycle, right? Have a smaller carbon footprint, go to school, education, put money in my bank account, whatever. There's an effect we want in the world. And the way we do this is by sticking our finger in the world, like that. You know, whether it's a marketing campaign or a product or, whatever you're doing, you stick your finger in the world. And your thinking is, if I stick my finger in the world here, amongst the many consequences that ripple out from them, some of them I don't know what they are, some of them I don't want, some of them I don't care. Amongst the many consequences is the one I care about. They boil water, they recycle, they put money in my bank account, whatever that effect is. Can you see how many errors are lying around there? What are the odds that you can correctly, in advance, say, if I stick my finger in the world here, amongst the many consequences is the one that I want? The odds of getting that are, roughly speaking, 0, right? I'll talk a lot about decisions, because you see an organization is like a giant brain. Everybody is making decisions. And people depend on other people for decisions. So there's lots of decisions going. Anything that you deliver into the world, whether it's an advertising campaign, a public relations message, a product, a survey, whatever you deliver into the world is the embodiment of the decisions that produced it. Okay? So you see, I'm speaking in a language that's completely general, that applies to all initiatives. It's very, very interesting. Since I've been working with the Heart of Agile for the last 4 years, it's changed everything about the way I talk about Agile. I don't teach it the same. It's changed my behavior in the world, and so on. So it's a very, very powerful concept. All right. So, Heart of Agile, steer to success in the VUCA world, if you will. Here's a quick recap of history. French guy by the name of Pierre Hervouet wrote this quick synopsis that, in the 90s, there were about 7 or 8 of these methodologies that we now call Agile. In 2001, we had a meeting. We simplified everything. We wrote the Agile Manifesto. Since then, many people have been making many different kinds of frameworks or methodologies. And he said, okay, with the Heart of Agile, we've re-simplified stuff again. So that's kind of nice that he speaks about it this way. Now, I'm going to have to talk about Shu-Ha-Ri. Those of you who've heard me before have heard this, but I have to talk about it in every talk, every class, because it's so important. I'm a certified Scrum trainer, and when I got reaccredited a couple of years ago, they sent me a spreadsheet with 104 learning objectives that I have to deliver in 2 days. That's like one every 5 minutes or something. I don't know how to do that, but I do that, but I don't know how to do that, but I do that, obviously. And I was going like, why are there 104? Why does Scrum have 104 things in it? And I realized that's because there are like 300 Scrum trainers in the world. They have trained almost 1 million people. There are over 900,000 certified Scrum Masters running around the world. They need consistency, they need an entry point, they need things to be made as explicit as they can to provide the entry for all these people going. That's called Shu, and I'm going to talk about Shu-Ha-Ri right now. So there's 3 stages of learning, skills acquisition in any kind of a skill. These words come to me from Aikido. Aikido uses them. Shu means follow. Ha means break. Ri means leave. But in a general skills acquisition context, Shu means learn one technique. So you're starting something, it's your first time baking bread or whatever it could be, and you say, how do I do that? It's your first time on an Agile project and you're like, whatever, your Scrum Master or whatever your role is, and you say, how do I do that? Always people say, how do I do that? And when someone answers you, they'll give you a technique. It may not be the best technique in the world, but it'll be one you can use. It's a pretty good technique that you can use most of the time. And that's called Shu, learn one technique. So you bake your bread and you do your, whatever your role specialty is. And we have a phrase that we say, boxes, shoes come in boxes. And we'll talk about the shoe box. English pun. Sorry. But so people learn one technique and then they make a nice little nest in this shoebox, and they never want to leave it. They never want to learn a second technique. So they get really stuck on their one technique. But there are other techniques that are also interesting. So we have to kick people out of the shoebox to the second stage of learning, which is to collect many techniques. So you don't have to use just this technique. There's many kinds of bread, right? Brown bread, white bread, flat bread, risen bread, this bread, that bread, all these breads. That's stage 2. Stage 1, learn one technique. Stage 2, collect techniques. This is normal skills acquisition sequence for anything. Finally, if you keep going, you get to the third stage. And in the third stage, you don't think about what you're doing. It's a full body experience. You know everything, just in your fingertips, in your eyes, in your ears. And you do it differently every single time. Now notice that there's a fundamental contradiction here between Shu and Ri, which is why I have to talk about this in every talk. The Shu people who are just starting ask for one technique that they can copy exactly. Even me, I know all of this stuff. If you say, there's 2 ways to do that, or, oh yeah, there's 3 ways to do it, I go, shh, just tell me one technique. I can't take 3 techniques, just give me one technique. It's, you're learning one thing. The Ri-level people go, yeah, but it's different, it depends, everything's different, that's not the best way to do it. That's normal Ri-level speaking. So Shu and Ri are fundamentally in contradiction. You're in a globally competitive enterprise, you need some Ri-level people around. You will necessarily also have Shu-level people around because people enter the industry all the time. So the reason I talk about this is because I want the Shu-level people to understand that they're learning one technique, it's okay. You have to kick yourself out of the shoebox to move to Ha. And the Ri-level people to have some patience with the Shu-level people because they have to have one technique. And you Shu-level people recognize that the Ri-level people do it differently every time, right? I love the one story about baking bread and Ri. So my wife was super duper cook, bread, pastry, everything. And so one day my son was like 10 or 12 years old, and it was in the afternoon, and so I said, we'll make some bread. Bread's good for kids, active kids, because you have to bang them and you have to bring the gluten out of the bread. So I was doing this, and he's banging, he's picking it on the can, like this. And then I call up my wife, and my wife is driving in the US, with these big cars, minivan. So she's driving down the highway, and I call her and I say, what temperature should I set the oven on? And she says, it needs more water. Now, how good is that she can hear while driving the car and he's doing this to the bread, that it needs more water, right? That's Ri, right? That's Ri. I love that story, right? All right, that's Shu-Ha-Ri. Now, the problem we're facing is that all of the frameworks, including Scrum was defined at a Ri level in 1994. The Agile Manifesto was written at a Ri level. My methodology, Crystal, is at the Ha-Ri level. I never made a Shu-level version of Crystal, which is why you don't know anything about it, because all beginners ask for a Shu level. The 104 learning objectives are the Scrum guys trying to make it as Shu as possible. All the methodologies are complicated and all the frameworks are complicated because they try to make it Shu level, because everybody comes in and says, how do we do that? What I was looking for was another doorway for people to enter. And I found one. It's a Japanese word, kokoro, like this tattoo right here. I have re-tattooed here. Then I found kokoro. Then I had to get a kokoro tattoo. I don't want any more levels because tattoos hurt. I don't do this for fun. I do this because I have to, so there's no more levels after kokoro. Kokoro is a word in Japanese. It means essence or heart or essence. It's the essence of something. It's the heart of something. And it basically is radical simplification. So people who have been doing something for 10 or 15 years, when you listen to them, they go, it doesn't have to be that complicated. You really only have to pay attention to these, 3 or 5 or 7 things, whatever they do, right? Now you guys have seen the Karate Kid movie. Raise your hand, you've seen the Karate Kid? I love it. The original one with Miyagi? Yeah, that's the thing. Now, I'm worried one day I'm going to give this talk and nobody will have seen it and then I lose all my references. I love that, at all ages people have seen it, yeah. And wax on, wax off. Miyagi is kokoro, like he taught the kid nothing, right? Wax on, wax off, paint my fence. No, don't hold it like this, hold it like, there, paint my fence, right? So there's a little shoe action right there, right? But it's kokoro. He says, but what if he's tall? What if he's short? What if he's this? It's called brilliance in the basics. In the US Air Force, they have this phrase, brilliance in the basics. There are so many airplanes that they can't teach the pilots, however smart the pilots are. They can't teach the pilots all of the different airplanes. You're in an emergency situation. You have to move like that. You can't think. It has to be reflex. So they have this phrase, they teach them the basics so that they can function in any plane, in any circumstances. They have that phrase, brilliance in the basics. You just do. Now, re-level people are annoying because if you ask them a question, they always go, well, it depends, Depends on what? Well, it depends on what we see. We'll know when we get there. Trust me, it'll be good, right? That's a re-level person. Kokoro level people are annoying because all they ever do is say, just master the basics, grasshopper. Just master the basics. And you go, but what about this? Just master the basics, right? They're very annoying. So you ask me any question, I'm going to say, check on your collaboration. Yeah, but Alistair, maybe you need to deliver a little bit more often. Yeah, but Alistair, did you stop and reflect and look at your data and your emotions and stuff? Yeah, but just improve a tiny bit. Don't worry, just improve your collaboration, right? How do you scale? How do you use Heart of Agile at scale? You know what my answer? You know what my answer is going to be. Collaborate. Yeah, but we're a distributed group with 14 silos. Good, then you need to collaborate better. How do we collaborate? Oh, don't ask me silly questions. You know how to collaborate. You may not want to, but you know how. And I get this now thrown back at me because I was going to tell a story with Sola. I was working with this company and I had there was a new person came who was the account manager and we were exchanging emails and there's a little bit of friction there. Their office was 3 blocks from my house. So talking to Sola and I say, I really have this problem with this person there. And she goes, did you walk down and talk to her? And I went, no, I didn't walk down and talk to her. Says, yes, I walked down and talked to her. Right? You know how to collaborate. I don't have to teach you that stuff. Right? So what does scale mean? Well, collaborate, right? And deliver is tough at scale. But you got to do it. The better you do it, the more agile you become. It's that simple. It's kokoro. So that's why it's called the Heart of Agile, why it only has 4 words. That's what we've got right there. There's the Japanese Agile no kokoro. It fits. Now, what we're going to do with the rest of the time we have, which is not too much. So most of this talk is online in Denmark last year. So if you go to the Heart of Agile website, You can see the full hour talk. It's the best talk I've given. All of the slides are there, except these early ones, which I've added just now. And you can go and watch the expansion slowly, right? Because of the time that we've got, I'm going to touch a few places in the expansion of this. But just so you can see, if you're going to do collaboration, you have to deal with culture. You have to deal with trust, fear, rewards, annual appraisals, executive bonuses. You see, these topics are not talked about in the frameworks. The frameworks talk about how to deliver something. They don't talk about annual appraisals, bonus plans, stuff like that. That's what you, if you want to improve collaboration, you have to work on those things. So that's what I mean. The heart of Agile has changed the way I talk about things, because it brings up, if you just live in this thing called collaborate, you find all kinds of topics that are very interesting that you don't find looking at a framework. Inside of delivery, you've got the Kanban, lean Kanban, flow, queue, management stuff, all the internal aspects of trying to get something out. So all of lean Kanban University fits in there. You see these words are very big. Deliver for learning, hypothesis-based development, modern agile project management, product management, lean startup, all of that is delivery for learning. Why do you do that? Because the world is different than you think it is, and it's changing. So you have to deliver for learning, deliver for income. I'll let Sonia talk about reflect and improve. I just want to show that this thing expands out into hundreds of topics. So I say it's only 4 words. When you start investigating, you find pretty much everything, every topic you could possibly want to talk about is there. But it's really interesting just to sit on those 4 words. So with the time that we have left, what I'm going to do is to pass over the microphone to Solit. Now, they hid the other microphones. We had it all staged here where we were going to get the microphones. Did you get a microphone? Good. And if you guys could mute my microphone there, please, so she's got the only mic working for a minute.
When we reflect, we want to reflect, thank you. We want to reflect on the data, what you done, if we deliver correctly, and we want to reflect on how we did it. And in the heart of Agile, we want to borrow from psychotherapy, solution focus, the concept of reflection, looking at the future. We said future focus instead of solution focus because we're not talking about the solution, we are talking about how to visualize, how to see present what we want to see. What you will notice that is already there and work from there. Like these teams that already talk about what went well, what went wrong, and we want to see what is already there. We want to visualize that perfect future. Like if tomorrow you come to work and that issue that we have in collaboration, let's say, is gone, what will you notice different? What will tip you off that the issue is gone? So while visualizing that, while put people in that mindset, we will start working on a small improvement that we want to see happening. We can start seeing and list the things that we want to see. And that's what triggers the improvement part. If that perfect future that we visualize is a 10, in a scale from 1 to 10, where are we standing today? And how we can improve just one little point in that scale. If it's today we are at 6, and tomorrow we come at work and we want to see a 7, what will we notice different? That's how we would like to see the world. We want to see what is there and move forward. So, the idea of this continuous improvement in small steps is like making a small change and make it sustainable. That's why we want little small steps to improve ourselves. this nurturing culture of building on top of what's already there is what we like to see. That makes sense? I would love to see that working. I'll work with teams every day, and we try this, and it's so easy to get there by little steps every day. It's like allowed to be safe and small. That's how we like to reflect and to make these hard beats. So we will continue. Back to Alistair on this.
Good. My microphone's back on again. That's the part that I need. Cool, cool. And it's not obvious that you would apply this micro change. It's a very weird thing. You know, like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. That's very difficult. What these guys at the Solution-Focused Psychotherapy School, which started in the late 1970s, what they found is, in fact, you don't have to be that. You only have to notice that. As you notice, if I ask you, what would you like to have? And you go, well, I'd like that people were polite to each other, let's just say, right? I'd like that people said hello to each other in the morning, let's just say. You go, well, notice that sometimes it actually happens. Not all the time, but it happens. As you notice it, it fills up your brain with the thing you want to notice. You don't spend your brain on the things that are wrong. You spend your brain on the things that you want to see. As it fills your brain, you do it more. You will say hello to more people in the morning. They will say no. So you pull yourself into the future just by noticing what it is that you want to have present. It's a very interesting thing psychologically. So you pull yourself into the desired future using this technique. So Sole and a French colleague of mine, Jerry Derbier, use the solution focus like all the time for their consulting. I chose to start with reflect and improve because that's really an anchor. That's the secret sauce. You could start anywhere, any level of collaboration, any process, any form of delivery, and you do 1/10 of a point improvement from 3 to 3.1 or 3 to 3.5. You don't go from 3 to 6. And that's very interesting. So that's new and different that we're doing. Inside of this, inside of delivery, the only thing I really care to say about delivery is this very interesting thing because we're working with decisions. If you had a car manufacturing plant, a factory, in the 1960s, they thought that internal inventory was free. It was okay if you had car parts stacked up to the ceiling because somebody would buy that car anyway. And I like to use the example of, let's say, Ford Fairlane. So there's the Ford Fairlane factory, and they've got parts stacked up to the ceiling. There's a movie, and the hero of the movie is driving, let's say, a red Mustang or something, right? This factory can't deal with that. They can't change anything because their factory is full of Ford Fairlane parts. They can't shift over and make anything else. They're not agile. They can't respond. If you look at Japan at the same time, they were having single piece flow with no inventory. Ideally, no inventory. But whatever the smallest you can deal with is. Now, if there's an event and the Red Mustang movie comes out, they can respond. They can start making Red Mustangs pretty quickly. So they're more agile. It's cheaper, faster. What's super important here is nobody works faster. It's not that anybody works any faster, it's that the system allows the errors to be caught more quickly and changes the direction. So even though, and I hate to say this, but Jeff Sutherland wrote a book called Twice the Work in Half the Time. Agile absolutely does not mean twice the work in half the time. That's not what we want. What we want is more value from the same amount of work, or more value from less work. With less working, by touching the world and having low inventory, we can have a bigger effect in the world. Now the thing here about the factory is it's very interesting. Every organization is full of people making decisions. People wait on other people for decisions. There's somebody in your company that you're all waiting on because that person travels too much or they have too many assignments, their inbox is full, you're waiting for them to... That person in manufacturing terminology is called the bottleneck station. They have decisions on the inside on their input queue, they're not producing decisions. So we get a flow of decisions through a company, an organization, with feedback loops and stuff. And it turns out that mathematically it is identical mathematically to a car manufacturing plant, to physical manufacturing. So decisions are a unit of internal inventory. And so that's why I talk about it a lot. Also, so in addition to that, which is the internals, like the flow of decisions through an organization, people make mistakes at the rate in 1 in 5, 1 in 10. What that gives you, I'm just showing here, most organizations, like if you have a big, let's say in a software company, you have a big requirements document, big design spec, you know, a bunch of code, you test it. That's called a large batch transfer system. You've got big queues. We're looking for, this is why the Agile world, they do user stories, very small chunks of coding, very small deliveries. Without anybody working any faster, you have an easier flow through the system and an easier chance to change. Right? I'm going to look at this quickly in a big bang delivery, not even big bang integration. When you have a marketing initiative, when you have a product, it contains 100,000 decisions. Everybody's making decisions, but they're not debugging those decisions. They don't catch the errors. So at the moment of delivery, you've got 10,000 errors you have to find and fix. Very wasteful. What we're looking for is a continuous learning process where you find a mistake early, and ideally, through being artful, you find a way to ask questions about areas that are possibly risky and increase your knowledge quickly, and you get a knowledge acquisition curve that looks like that. That's the opposite of risk, right? You're reducing risk. What this means is that you end up kind of with two parts to the project, not phases, but there's an emphasis on risk reduction or learning early. And then later, life becomes easy. You can take anything in any order. There are 4 areas in which you are trying to learn. What business should we be in? What's our business model? What are the technical elements that we have to work out? That we have hired the right people, put them together. That the people are learning how to work with each other, because it takes time. And we need to learn what is the cost and the schedule and the resources needed to get this all done. All of those are things you're learning all the time. So those little stair steps are artfully constructed out of, we need more business learning, we need technical learning, we need social learning, and we need cost schedule learning. Right? So there's an art of steering a project these days that's different than even Scrum. Right? It's very artful. This has been around for about 10 years, just so you know. I'm going to now get to the last part that I want to get to, which is the culture. There's so much to say. There's just inside of here, there's a really interesting little wrinkle I want to show to you that I call guest leadership. Now, guest leadership is a strange word, because why are the guests the leaders? But in fact, if you have a party with friends, and let's say you go to a friend's house for, and you see that they've run out of bread or cheese, maybe, right? And you go into the back room and you find a loaf of bread and you slice up the bread and you refresh the bread and the cheese, right? You're a guest, but you did what the host maybe would do. Or in the US, it happens often. You run out of beer or whatever, and somebody says, I'll make a beer run. Who's going to come with me? And they get a couple of people and they take, I like beer, I don't drink beer, I want wine, I want more soda, whatever. They run to the store and they get the stuff and they come back. That was an act of leadership by one of the guests. Now the interesting thing is, having the concept of the guests as leaders or employees as leaders, right? You have 20 times as many guests as hosts, 10 times as many employees as managers, some number like that. If the guests become the leaders, everything goes much faster. What's interesting is this stuff, guest leadership, happens all the time in our normal life. For some reason, it doesn't happen much in companies. And here's a story I just picked off the internet. Some family was having trouble, apparently in Brazil, off the coast. Somebody we don't know who, somebody organized a chain of 80 people holding hands to go out into the ocean and bring the people back. That person was a guest leader. When it was all done, they probably went back to sunbathing on the beach or whatever. That's guest leadership. It's an interesting little side topic, but I want to tell you about that one. See, I've got my screen wrong. I was talking to the wrong slide. So there's the one I thought I was talking to. So there are the 80 strangers form human chain to rescue family of the ocean, right? So since I got 2 slides up here, I have to get to the right one. I wanted to tell you that one because an interesting thing happened only about 3 weeks ago. There's an Argentinian lady by the name of Monica del Suc, and she climbed the highest mountain in Europe. She's doing the 7 peaks. She already did, kind of obviously, I guess. She's from Mendoza, so the highest peak in North and South America is Aconcagua. So she did that one last year. So now she's going through the 7, and she just 3 weeks ago climbed Mount Elbrus, which is in the Caucasus. And she was very kind and carried the Heart of Agile banner to the top. So there you see Mount Elbrus, and there you see, and she was actually, I was in Brazil, she was there, so that was fun. I got to tell her story, and she came up on stage, you know, I waved at people. She's not here now, that's fine, I'll tell a bit of her story. The thing that's interesting is that I'm gonna go forward and come back. This is the first selfie of a group on the top of Elbrus ever, because of her and the others who did this guest leadership thing. Why are there no selfies, group selfies on the top of Elbrus? The answer is it's very cold. And the people are so tired they can hardly make the last steps to the top. They put their backpacks down 15 minutes before the top, and they go up, they touch the thing, they take a picture, they put a pin, and they go down again because it's cold. So that's why, so what happened was 15 minutes from the top, Monica's very strong, so she gets up there, she's taking off her backpack, she waits for the next person, and the next person says, I can't do it. I don't have the energy, I'm not making that last 15 minutes. Go on ahead. She says, no, don't be silly. So she had some tea, some raisins, some stuff. She gave him tea and raisins. The next guy came up. He also needed some tea and raisins, and they, okay, we're good now. So then she went up and waited for these guys to come up in the cold. They waited for the entire group of 8 people to come up to the top. And that's why there's never been a group selfie at the top of Elbrus before. Right? That's guest leadership, and what you see here looks like a group of people walking together. The reason there's a group of people walking together was because the Russian guide loved to run fast off ahead. The second person was Chilean and was very strong and loved to go along with the guide. Monica is very tough, and she's going along, but she looks behind her, and there's too much distance. Now you're on a mountain, she can't stop. She stop, does she go? What does she do? So they used something from the book called The Goal, Theory of Constraints. I don't think they read the book, but they used the same technique. The guide at the back said, hey, psst, we'll put this fast Chilean person behind the slowest person in the group so he can't go too fast. We'll put Monica number 2 so she can make sure the guide doesn't go too fast, and she can set the pace for the group. Guest leadership, right? So anyway, I'm telling that story because this is weird things, you know, these little corners and cracks around collaboration. Guest leadership is a very interesting concept. So you can expand this out a lot. That isn't the point of the talk. That isn't the point of the Heart of Agile. The point of the Heart of Agile is to make it simple. Fold it all back up again, and you only have 4 words. Collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve, over and over and over and over. You can go on the Heart of Agile website. We'll upload this talk a little bit later. The one from Denmark with the video is already up there, so you can see, you know, a little bit more time given to all of this. And then once again, I want to thank the Agile actors. So that's it for me. And by the way, I'll be doing another session from 2 to 3 in which I'll just answer questions, right? It'll just be a chat. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you.